Right, yeah, the recording and the main stream has started now, Chair, so when you're ready.
Thank you very much for confirming, Mark. So as usual, I'll just start with some housekeeping issues. Can I remind everyone present that this remote meeting is being live streamed as well as recorded via the internet, and this recording archived for future viewing. Could all participants please mute themselves when not speaking in order to avoid any background noise or feedback when other participants are speaking? If a participant wishes to speak, can they please raise their hand? Can they raise their hand using the remote raise hand function? If you raise your hand via the remote function and you're not subsequently invited to speak by myself, please can you turn your camera on to indicate that you wish to speak or place a message in the chat function. When invited to address by the chair, please could all participants ensure that their microphone and camera are on to ensure that they can be seen and heard when actively participating. If this isn't possible for any reason, please just let me know that, or let one of the Democratic Services officers know as soon as possible. Please ensure that all debate is raised verbally and not via the chat function for the sake of the recording. The chat function can be used to highlight any technical issues or get the attention of myself or a Democratic Services officer. If any participant has difficulty hearing or being heard when they're addressing the committee, then again, just let myself or the officer know. So can I welcome all committee and non-committee elected members, cabinet members, our officers, public speakers, Vale residents, and also to anyone watching the live meeting broadcast. Moving straight on to the agenda, with apologies for absence, do we have any, please?
Chair, I've not had any through. I think we might well be full complement tonight in terms of membership.
Thank you very much, Mark, and I don't see any hands. So we move on to agenda item 2. This is minutes of the previous meeting, and in fact we've got 3 sets of meetings to approve. From the 14th of January, the special meeting which was held on the 28th of January, and then usual committee meeting on the 11th of February. So I'm going to take them one by one, starting with the 14th of January. Is everybody happy with those minutes, or are there any amendments? No, I see no hands, so I will move those minutes. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Hooper?
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor. And then the special meeting on the 28th of January, are there any amendments? Councillor Prothero, please.
I think just a slight attributed amendment to be made. I spoke 3 times on 3 different sections of the meeting, and I spoke about the car parks for my rural part of the Vale, Portobello and West Farm, and I asked for confirmation that there would be the public consultation for our stakeholders as promised, and it's been attributed to Councillor Penn. So I just think it's a question of it being put under the wrong councillor, that's all. So nothing major, just wanted to say. Thank you.
No, it's important that the minutes accurately reflect the discussions that we have at committee, so thank you for highlighting that. Are there any other amendments? Councillor Iannucci-Williams, please.
Thank you, Chair. Similarly to Joe's, just wanted to tweak. I think when I suggested the research that could be done on Court Road, I wanted to. I'd made the suggestion that maybe the survey could have been 3 months, and I know that might not end up happening, but that is what I suggested at the meeting. So just be grateful if that could go in as well, please.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Anything from anyone else? Okay, thank you. So in that case, can I move the minutes subject to those amendments being made in the final copy of minutes, so we can ensure that those changes are made and recorded? Mark, can you just confirm that we can do that, please?
Right. The minutes themselves, Chair, won't be amended, but on this meeting and this minute, when we have the minutes for approval, there will be the condition that they're approved subject to those changes. There'll still be a public record, but it will be in relation for these minutes. We can't amend the previous minutes, but the amendments that have been put forward will be noted on the minutes for this meeting, which is the normal practice.
Oh, okay. I can see a slight issue with that, because obviously if people simply look at the minutes from the previous committee without those amendments, and don't look at this committee's minutes, they won't necessarily see those amendments. I think that's something that perhaps we can pick up outside of committee.
Okay, sure.
So for now, I will move the minutes subject to those amendments being recorded, whether in this month's or the previous months. So can I have a seconder for those minutes, please? Councillor Drake?
I'll second those minutes along with the amendments.
Thank you very much, Councillor. And then finally, the minutes from the 11th of February. Are there any amendments? No, I wasn't able to attend that meeting. So can I have somebody who's willing to move those minutes, please? Councillor Iannucci-Williams, Vice Chair, you chaired the meeting. You're happy to move?
Yep, happy to move.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Prothero? Were you wanting to second, Councillor Prothero? We couldn't hear you, but I can see that that's what you're wanting to do. So thank you very much. Moving on to declarations of interest. Are there any, please? No, I see no hands. So we move on to agenda item 4. This is the annual delivery plan monitoring report for Q3 performance 24-25. The report is before us this evening, as usual, for our consideration, with any recommendations going back to Cabinet. We're joined by the Director of Place, Marcus Goldsworthy, who's going to take us through it. We'll take the report as read because it's a lengthy report, and I know Marcus has a brief presentation and will highlight those issues which are relevant to this committee. So thank you for joining us, Marcus, and over to you, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just really quickly, I'll run through the summary of the report so members are aware which quarter we're talking about. It is Q3, from which cumulatively covers the 1st of April 24 to 31st of December 24. And it's towards achieving our annual delivery plan commitments as aligned to the corporate plan for the year 24-25. The Q3 performance snapshot for the current plan is detailed in the presentation of Appendix A, which we will go through shortly. It provides a summary of overall progress against the delivery of the plan and again, as aligned to all 4 corporate wellbeing targets. The report seeks elected members' consideration of Q3 results and the proposed actions to address areas of identified underperformance. Upon consideration, the Scrutiny Committee is recommended to refer any views and any recommendations to Cabinet for their consideration. This quarter, we have produced a Scrutiny Committee remit-specific performance snapshot in addition to the annual delivery plan snapshot, which has been produced in previous reports. And this presentation is intended to provide members with the overall performance against all actions and measures. And that will be in slides 2 and 3. An overall overview of the achievements for the Scrutiny Committee with the remit aligned to the corporate wellbeing objectives. That's slide 4 and 5. A committee-specific performance snapshot outlining overall performance against actions and measures, and including any exceptions in slides 6 and 8. And then areas for improvement, emerging areas of development and activity, and emerging areas of concern specific to each Scrutiny Committee in slides 9 to 13. And then for reference for members, there is a detailed performance commentary for all actions and measures, which is attached to Appendix B. And that provides contextual information for members to examine if they wish to look at that in detail. So I think Mark was going to put up the appendix so all members could see it, if that's okay. Thanks very much. Yes, if we could move to the next page, Mark. And this provides an overall summary against the development plan. And this shows the overall performance against the plan is shown as being green. And you can see in terms of objectives 1, 2, 3, and 4, where we are in respect of the various objectives. This part is against, just checking, this is against activities, I believe, or is this against measures? This is against measures. So if we could move on to the next plan, next screen, please, Mark. And this performance plan shows how we're performing against activities, and this where the grey areas are shown, those are going to be yearly reporting measures. So while there are elements of green and red there, the grey, the largest areas are green, which shows that those are the measures where they are reported yearly. So if we move on to the what we've achieved section page. Thanks very much, Mark. Against objective one, I won't read through all of these, but I'll just pick some out, and members can ask questions at the end of the what we have achieved section, if that's okay. So in terms of objective 1, to work with and for our communities, we have produced a draft placemaking plan for Cowbridge, and this has been developed with partners, including the Town Council, and that will be brought to Cabinet and Scrutiny in April. We are in preparation for 3 other plans for the towns, and these will follow a similar pathway slightly later in the year. We've had take-up of the Legacy Leisure app, which continues to increase significantly, and we successfully secured additional Welsh Government funding for access improvement grants to undertake a condition survey for public rights of way. In respect of Objective 2, we've secured funding for shared prosperity, and this is now fully committed for the year 24-25. The Council continues to work with government, UK government and other partners in respect of the delivery of the Barry Making Waves and Barry Partnership. Work is progressing with Cardiff Capital Region, Welsh and UK governments to develop regional and local strategies for transport, planning and economic development. And we're working to develop the Transforming Towns funding with Welsh Government for 25-6 and 26-7. In respect of Objective 3, supporting people at home and in their community, we've supported community groups and third sector organisations through Shared Prosperity and the Strong Communities Grant Fund to access energy efficiency measures. EcoFlex 4 is being actively promoted and 70 applications have progressed. Section 106 funding has been delivered in respect of open space and community facilities with examples of Birchfield Courts Project, Celtic Way and Alexandra Park. We have successfully bidded to the Cardiff and Vale. The successful bidder for the Cardiff and Vale Housing Partnership has been confirmed, and legal and governance negotiations with the bidder will begin in February 25. And out of 49 dwellings approved this quarter, 19 were affordable, and additional Section 106 affordable housing contributions were obtained and continue to be used. Finally, for this section, in respect of Objective 4, respect and enhance the environment, Project Zero has now been included in all project procurement activity. Approximate total reduction in CO2 of 134 tonnes and 132,000 kilowatts of energy across 52 properties has been achieved since the start of 23-24. Cabinet approved the highway maintenance plan for 24-27. We've secured a Studai Cymru grants to achieve low carbon heat facilities to support carbon reduction across our building estate, and the trees strategy has been endorsed by the Council. So would any members like to ask any questions in respect of what we've achieved section? No? I can see no questions. So we'll move on to areas for improvement, if that's okay, Mark. I think is the next slide.
I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, sorry. I can't see myself on screen because of the presentation, so I wasn't sure if I'd come in. I did actually have a couple of questions myself, Marcus, from that
Sorry.
section. No, that's fine.
Go ahead, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. So 2 questions in relation to Objective 2. Thank you very much for taking us through that. So first of all, in terms of the funding for both the long-term towns project and the Levelling Up project, it's obviously great news that that funding has been approved. Is there any update on timescales for receipt of that funding? And secondly, also good to see that significant work has been undertaken to develop transforming towns funding for 25-26 and 26-27. Again, would be helpful to know more about that in terms of the progress that's been made. Thank you. And then I can see that Councillor Prothero also wants to come in. So if we take my questions first and then come back to Councillor Prothero, thank you. Mark, is it possible to take the presentation down while councillors are asking questions and Marcus is responding to them? Or is that too complicated? Yeah, great, thank you. I just think I'm conscious that members are meant to be seen and heard when they're addressing the committee. So thank you, Mark, for doing that, and thanks.
Thank you, Chair. So with regard to your first question, long-term plan for towns has actually been renamed as the plan for neighbourhoods. We received notification of that last week, along with a new guidance document, which, if you like, explains the process around the new procedures. So we are going to have to take not necessarily a step back, but we are going to have to look at some of the procedures and the board we set up for the long-term plan for towns, and try and work within the new set of guidance that have been produced. That will push us back slightly, although there is funding proposed for 25-26, although it is very limited funding, and that funding is aimed at actually setting up the partnership in the plan for neighbourhoods term. So the actual scheme, the plan for neighbourhoods, replacement for long-term plan towns, if you like, will actually commence properly in 26-7. We will be producing an update report for both Cabinet and for scrutiny, which will set out the likely timescales around that and what has to be done in the next couple of months. We are in the process of digesting what has come out very recently last week. It's also worth saying that there is additional guidance we are expecting in respect of that, which hasn't yet been released. So we will, to all intents and purposes, we've been pushed back 12 months by the new guidance, but we are expecting to progress that this year. There is, within that guidance, I think, really good news, certainly for Barry, in that the focus has very much shifted onto the strong communities and strengthening our communities across the town. And I think the community focus of that, the guidance that's been released so far, is heartening, and I think we will be working within that to try and facilitate what the new government has requested, if you like, the changes to the long-term plan for town scheme. So we are a little bit pushed back with that one. In terms of the formerly Levelling Up programme, but now we refer to as Barry Making Waves, we are continuing to work with our partners to facilitate a new plan around delivery. You may recall, or members will recall, that the original Levelling Up plan was supposed to be delivered by April 2026. Clearly, we're not going to deliver that now, and the delays that have been introduced which, and they're outside of our control. Largely, they relate to the election and what happened after the election, and delays in terms of the funding. So we are now looking to agree with UK government the funding streams till, in all likelihood, end of March 2028, and that will be the new timetable we'll be looking to agree with UK government. We are in the process of getting agreement from government to that, although we understand that should not be an issue, and that is what is being agreed with other levelling up projects that have previously been approved. So it's a two-pronged approach. We are negotiating with the UK government to agree that process, but also working with our colleagues and partners, including Associated British Ports and others, including Cardiff and Vale College, to work out a new timeline based around that likely delivery programme.
Thank you, Marcus. I'm sure committee will welcome a further update on that at the end of Q4. I can see Councillor Prothero, you wanted to come in.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Marcus. My question was, and I'm really pleased to see that we are on track to hit our 70% recycling target in this authority. That's really good work. And I'm really pleased to see that the income that we generate from the separated waste that we collect, not only does it have a value, but we've actually increased the income that we get from it. So I think that residents would be pleased to know that that is working, but also how much money and how much we are actually generating in income with that separated recycled waste. So if you could give us an idea of the value, that I think would be something people would be interested to hearing about. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Prothero. I will bring in Miles Punter, if I may, at this point. Miles, I don't know if Miles is there just to Arthur, thank you, Miles, just to answer that question.
Yes, Chair, Councillor Prothero. Yeah, last year we're talking in the region of 1.4 million from recycling sales, but it needs to be conscious of the fact these markets fluctuate. So we had a particularly good year, so glass and metals in particular. So the service requires that to operate because it's quite an expensive service, you'd appreciate. But we did have a good year last year in terms of materials, and we're hopeful that next year will be similar. But it should just be borne in mind that material values can go up and can go down, but in excess of £1 million last year. So a really good and promising figure.
Thank you very much, Miles. Did you have a follow-up, Councillor Prothero?
Oh, I'm awfully sorry. I just wanted to confirm that. So that's clear profit for the authority, because I know Miles just said that it's quite costly to actually deliver that. But is that including the costs of delivering it? Thank you.
Miles, are you able to come back in on that? Thank you.
No, that's the cost of sales, essentially. So it goes back into the cost of the service. Members will appreciate that many years ago we didn't collect with the types of vehicles we got now and the numbers of vehicles we got now. So the actual cost of service operation for source separated recycling is quite considerable compared to non-segregated recycling collection. So it goes back into the service to help the cost of that service. So it is the amount that we've got from sales, but to say it's profit would be incorrect. It goes back in to the cost of the service, which is considerably more than that £1 million.
Thank you, Miles. Councillor Hooper, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Miles. Can we dig into the questions that the Chair made a bit, Marcus, if you don't mind? The first one on the Making Waves Levelling Up project. You talked about negotiations with UK government. I'd welcome a bit more detail on that. This is a scrutiny committee, so I'm keen to know what those negotiations broadly about. There's things that are confidential, I understand, but I'd be like the broad feel of it. I'd also like to know, you talked about the changes between the long-term towns project and whatever it's called now. What are those changes? It's just saying there are changes between them. I'd be keen to know what they are. And just to confirm, and for the records, it looks like, so with the town plan is a year late, and the Making Waves project is at the moment 2 years late. And we spent a lot of time on this committee when we've discussed Making Waves over the past 2 years, talking about the impact of inflation on the costs associated with the Making Waves project. So we've stopped some of the original plan, which was put in a water sports centre over one side, and there was going to be some other buildings which have now gone into refurbishing the docks office instead. And that was, if I remember, done because of changes to inflation impacting on the £20 million budget. Is there a risk that if we don't get these things buttoned down first, that the 19 million will be insufficient to be able to take the project forward? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hooper. So in respect to your first question, I can't advise you of that yet. We only received the documentation last week. We are currently digesting it, and we will bring a report back on the new plan for neighbourhoods. I think, to be fair to the UK government, the current UK government, obviously the long-term plan for towns was introduced just before the change to, if you like, the announcement of the election. They needed time to digest that and to decide how they were going to progress. They have decided to make changes to that programme, and in making changes to that programme, clearly it needs to fit within a financial year, and they have, because those changes have been made, and I would argue some of the changes which we've seen so far, which relate to a focus on communities, are better, make the plan better. Those changes are going to take time, and we need to adapt what we did for the previous long-term plan for towns to fit within the current guidelines. As I say, we haven't received all the guidelines yet from UK government. We are expecting those in the next month or so, and once we have those, we will be digesting them, and we will be coming back just to advise what the changes are likely to be to both Cabinet and to this committee. So I can't really give you any more information on that at this stage. With respect to the levelling up bid and the award of levelling up funding, as you'll be aware, once again, preparation was affected by the announcement of the election in July last year, and then obviously by the new government coming in and deciding whether it was going to continue with the funding that had originally been awarded by the last government. It's not. I think it's fair to say that when we made changes to the scheme, that was more to do with operational reasons and to do with issues around the land which we were proposing to use for various parts of the scheme, including the Ocean Water Sports Trust, and indeed in terms of changing needs for the council. So by bringing the council's own docks office into the scheme, that was if you like, part of the process of deciding that we no longer needed that office building, and could we make better use of it, but also use funding that had been provided through the Levelling Up Plan programme to actually deliver that. So rather than just inflationary matters, I think it was a case of trying to get the best scheme we could in place operationally. I think it's fair to ask questions about the value of the scheme. Clearly, the award was originally in 2023. We are 2 years on from that, and we all know that there are inflationary pressures. Unfortunately, given where we are in terms of the various issues that have arisen since that award was made back at the end of 2023, we really couldn't have moved any more quickly. And as a council, we are doing our utmost to ensure the scheme can be delivered within the funding envelope. That does mean there have been tweaks, and there will continue, I'm sure, to be tweaks to the scheme as we move along. That is not unusual, but that is part and parcel of delivering a major regeneration scheme. And then finally, I think it's actually your first question, but I'll come to it last, around negotiations with the UK government. And essentially, those negotiations are around the delivery time and delivery window for the programme. We were always under the impression, and so were UK government, that the delivery window of end of March 2026 was very, very tight, even when the award was made in 2023, in October or November 2023. And we were always going to be in the position, even if we'd have started the project and proper and had been on the ground just after then, that we would have to be asking for an extension, and UK government was aware of that, as were civil servants. We're now in a position clearly where we've had considerable if you like, intervening issues that have taken place and which are outside the control of this council, including the election and the period of time that the new UK government has taken to decide on the funding itself and how they want to deal with that funding. That has been recognised by UK government, and we are very, very confident that an extension in the timescales for delivery will be granted to us. So those are the discussions that are currently underway with UK government.
Councillor Hooper, do you want to come back in on that?
Yeah, just a very brief follow-up. Perhaps Marcus could just outline what is meant by March 28. What do we expect in March 28, please? Is it project started, project finished, yachts in the harbour?
By March 28, we expect the project to be completed. So that would be delivery of an Ocean Water Sports Trust building, delivery of the conversion of the docks office to incubator units and the marina on site.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marcus. I don't see any other hands, so would you like to take us through the next section of the report, please? Mark, if you're able to load the presentation again. Thank you.
I think we've got an issue, Chair, but
yes.
It's come up. I can see it.
Yeah, I think it's yeah. Thank you very much, Mark. Over to you, Marcus.
Thank you, Mark. And just to say that the actions and measures RAG status has been included for this committee. So that's the Environment and Regeneration Committee, and you can see there that the vast majority of those measures, actions are green, and indeed the measures which include the grey area, which is for annual measures, are in the majority green as well. If we can go on to the next slide, please, Mark. Just to advise here that there is a reference to some of the service measures that have slipped and are red, and you'll note that the first one there is in relation to the what we call the Western Gateway scheme, which is a combined housing and health hub delivery scheme next to the council's offices in Holton Road, Broad Street. That project, unfortunately, has been hit by rising costs, but partly, if I can explain the reasoning behind that, that is partly also being caught up in the council's programme of where it has been seeking a partner, housing delivery partner. And so we were, and I think housing were expecting that housing delivery partner to be agreed and announced earlier than perhaps it ultimately ended up being announced. And so to progress this scheme, we have had to use QS and other advice, which is outside of the partnership. And unfortunately, in doing that, the cost scheme that was developed for the Western Gateway was very, very risk adverse. So because the project was being developed essentially by, let's say we use the word cold, by consultants appointed directly to deliver this, it has come in significantly over budget. However, we are expecting that the delivery partners who will be delivering this project for us, we are expecting them to come to look at this scheme again for us and to come back with significant cost reductions and savings in due course. We are currently waiting for the finalisation of that contract, and once that has happened, we will be asking our partners to go through this scheme again and to run through costs and to, where necessary, value engineer. But we do expect actually that there will be significant savings on the original value that's been put there. So long story short, we have slightly been held up by the appointment of our housing delivery partners in this scheme, but we remain confident that it can be delivered. The other areas which are red is the delivery of further school street closures. That is referred to later on in the presentation, and I understand that this work the intention is that this will be able to start in the new financial year. And then finally, the delivery of an alternative sewage arrangement for Channelview, Marcross and Croft John Penn Mark. That continues to await financial approval on private funding. If you go to the next slide, please, Mark. And then in terms of measures, the number of members who used the community transport service over the year, that hasn't met the target, although it has increased, and members will be aware that significant new funding has been announced for the community transport service. The other areas are the number of passenger journeys undertaken on the Green Link service, and again, no commentary has been provided, but again, I advise that additional funding has been provided for Green Links, and we are expecting that service in the new financial year to pick up. And then finally, with the listed building applications determined in the 8-week timescale, we are still waiting for CADU, which is the Welsh Historic Monuments Organisation, to agree to take back or to give the council back its delegated procedures, so that the council can determine the applications without going to CADU itself, because that adds an added complication to the process and slows it all up. So we are working towards the resolution of all of those issues. Can I have the next slide, please, Mark? Thanks very much. And this is for areas of improvement in service plan activity. And respect of area objective 1, working with and for our communities, we've seen significant inflationary price rises, and as I mentioned, these have impacted upon the Vale Gateway scheme, and we are currently looking at ways to lower costs and secure additional funding if necessary, although we do believe we can lower those costs. In respect of objective 2, supporting learning, employment and sustainable economic growth, we have been unable to proceed with street closures, but as I advised, we are looking to anticipate commencement of the new process in March 2025. The speed of listed buildings determinations have been delayed because of CADU, and we're progressing sustainable solutions for school transport services in light of increasing demands. In respect of objective 4, the deposit replacement local development plan is in preparation. However, timescales have slipped due to issues around some site deliverability, around site, which has occurred because site promoters, perhaps best description is, haven't yet got some of their ducks in a row. So we have been delayed by virtue of some of the sites that have been suggested to be included within the replacement local development plan. There is a shortfall against the target, 68.4% against the target of 75%, in the percentage of commercial and industrial noise and air complaints responded to within 1 working day. The number of private rented properties where energy efficiency has been improved through direct action from shared regulatory service missed its target of 50, with only 29 properties being engaged, and 70% of waste was collected and prepared for reuse or recycled, which is just short of the target of 71%, but it should be noted that the target of the performance of 70% meets the national statutory target. Thanks very much for that, Mark. We can move on to emerging areas of development and activity. And in emerging areas,
Marcus, just before you
yes. Any questions? Yeah. Apologies.
If I can just pause and check before. Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Hooper. Please, you wanted to come in with a question.
To comment on a question, just well, the first one is anyway, the Green Links concern. This was called into this committee recently. I'm just really surprised that no commentary was provided on the document before it came out. Perhaps you want to feed back to officers, and given it's an area of concern for this committee, it'd be good to have the commentary provided rather than just no commentary. So that's just a note. And the second thing, there was a point saying that there's been you are progress work to establish sustainable solutions for school transport services. Perhaps you can give us a little bit more on that, please, because it's a concern for lots of parents across the Vale. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Can I call Miles Punter back in to answer that particular question, if that's okay?
Thank you, Marcus. Thank you, Chair. Can I deal with the commentary issue first? Just to say that I apologise to committee for that. We've got a lot to say about Greenlink, so we took a report to Cabinet last Thursday on it. So there's a hell of a lot of detail involved in this, and we are increasing our numbers year on year. We're not up to the 10,000 journeys we had pre-COVID, but we're getting close to 5,000, and there's no reason why committee shouldn't have had a commentary. So I will take that back to the office to find out what happened with that. In terms of schools transport, as you know, there's a considerable overspend in this area, which we're looking to deal with. So we are working with our colleagues in the Chief Executive's team to come up with a range of measures aimed at improving school transport, but also reducing its operating costs, because at the moment there's a hell of a lot of taxi journeys for individuals that are expensive. But the main reason for working on this area is to try and improve getting our children to school and the reliability of that. So this committee and Cabinet will see reports on that within the next coming months and throughout 2025, because there's a lot of work to do in that area. But we've got a group set up specifically looking at school transport, Councillor Hooper. So we will bring these measures and these ideas through this committee as well as through Cabinet over the course of the next few months, and certainly throughout 2025.
Thank you very much, Miles. Councillor Prothero, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. And this one's for Miles again. I'm sorry. I just want to ask a quick question, please, on the sustainable alternative sewage system. It's Mark Cross, really. I know there's Croft John as well in Penmark, but we are, I believe, awaiting financial private possible funding. I just was wondering, can you just elaborate a little bit on that? This is an ongoing issue. I know how complicated this is, but we really don't want it to not in the end succeed. So could you just let us know what the private financial funding is? Thank you very much.
Miles, are you able to come back in? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I have to say, I'm not sure where that financial private funding came from. That I think, as Councillor Prothero will be aware, when I met with the Community Council for this area before Christmas, I talked about the concern of the cost of the replacement scheme that would have been borne by the 10 properties served by it. Only a couple of those are council properties, and it was excessive because the cost of the scheme was quite. Replacement scheme was very expensive. So what I determined to do was to arrange for survey work to be undertaken to establish why Croft John, which is a comparable system, is considerably cheaper to empty than Marcross. My feeling being that there is other water entering the system other than foul water. So that piece of work is complete. And I'm meeting with the engineers on the 19th of March to go through the detail. And then I aim to meet with the local ward members to discuss what options there are. We will look back again at the possibility of individual treatment works for each property. But what I'm primarily doing as well is seeing how low I can get the costs down for the conventional arrangement that's there currently. This is assuming that it's working as it should, and I haven't been through the details of the consultant's report yet. When we've got all that information and we've digested it with local members, we will meet with the residents who are served by the system, and I'm aiming to do that within the next 10 weeks. But as for reference to private funding, I'm not really sure where that's come from. If there are any grants available, then we would gratefully accept it for this system, but I'm not aware of any. But we do have an alternative, but as I say, it's very, very expensive, and it's something that would be cost prohibitive, I believe, to each of the residents involved. But we will have that conversation with them as a group, and then, as is probably necessary, individually following that. So I'm aiming to do that, as I say, over the next few weeks and months.
Thank you very much, Miles. I don't see any other committee members wanting to come in on this issue. So could you take us through the next section of the report, which I think is emerging areas of development and activity? Thank you very much, Marcus.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, if Mark can just put the There we go. Thank you very much, Mark. So in respect of Objective 1, one of the key areas for us is the placemaking agenda to identify and using this to identify and inform future improvements. Also implementing the moving traffic offences enforcement following the Welsh Government approval of powers funding. Under Objective 2, supporting learning, employment and sustainable economic growth, we're progressing enforcement work to bring more empty properties back into use. And we're working closely with Cardiff and Vale College to create an employer-led Vale Skills Steering Group to support skills development for the future. Under Objective 3, supporting people at home and in their community, we're supporting delivery of temporary accommodation in line with identified need through the planning process. We're progressing accessible adapted homes as part of the Council House Building Programme, and we're taking forward work in partnership with the Public Services Board on our 3 most deprived communities, informed by engagement finding and work within those communities. And finally, Objective 4, respecting, enhancing and enjoying our local environment. We're developing the flood risk management strategy, aims, objectives and measures in conjunction with specialist consultants. We're progressing work through Project Growth to support achievement of the Council's waste commitments and national statutory targets. We're taking forward work to grow the existing commercial waste service, increasing take-up by businesses. We're progressing work with passenger transport operators and the city region to deliver an improved bus service and infrastructure provision, and developing a refuse and recycling vehicle parking area at the Atlantic train station. So, any questions on those emerging areas?
Thank you very much, Marcus. Any questions? Councillor Ernest, please.
Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Ernest, sorry, forgive me talking over you. Forgive you. Mark, are you able to take the presentation down?
Yeah, bear with me a second, Chair. Be there now.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you for your patience, Councillor Ernest. We'll just take the presentation down so that we can see you when you raise your question.
I'm still talking to a screen, Chairman.
Yes, you are. We are meant to be seen and heard.
Bear with me. My colleague's just taking it off now. Bear with me.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry. I realise it does add a complexity when we need to interrupt the presentation. But thank you.
Should be off now, Chair.
Well, right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, Chairman, thank everybody for their indulgence. Marcus, can I just refer to the Objective 4 report that you read out, in fact, in the last couple of minutes, about progressing work with passenger transport operators. I'm particularly concerned, I know my other colleagues are, at the quality of the train services to and from Penarth to Cardiff Central and onwards. This is not a matter that the council seems to get involved with, but we're getting many reports of numerous cancellations of what's meant to be a 15-minute service to and from Cardiff. And this has all come about since the trains were rerouted to Corryton on the one half hour and to Caerphilly on the other. The Caerphilly line is not too bad because it goes through Cardiff and Queen Street, but the Corryton line, which has recently been electrified and has numerous stops on single track, is causing major problems. And I've had many complaints, not only directly but online as well, from people who've missed onward transfers to London for important meetings, people who've even missed flights as a consequence. And what I would really like to ask is, what contact do we have with Transport for Wales, and what actions can you be taking to get the service back to where it was about 9 months or so ago, when it was pretty reliable? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Marcus, thank you.
Chair, thank you. I don't know if Miles wants to come in as well in respect to this. What I will say is we are in contact with Transport for Wales. I know Kyle Phillips works really closely with them, and we are engaging them on a number of areas of interest. I'm sure that we can take those comments back to Transport for Wales and raise them as an issue. As Councillor Ernest rightly says, it's not a council function, so it's not something we can necessarily directly influence, although there's no reason why we can't raise those as particular issues for Transport for Wales to look at on our behalf.
Councillor
Thank you.
Ernest,
Well, I'm grateful for that, Chairman. I'm sure that local travellers will be equally glad if we can do that as a matter of some urgency. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Marcus.
Thank you, Councillor. I see no other hands, so we will move on to the final section of the report, which is emerging areas of concern. Thank you, Marcus.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so hopefully we'll get through this quickly. Emerging areas of concern with respect to Objective 1, we're looking for with and for our communities. Rising inflationary pressures are impacting on the cost of delivering schemes. Attracting and retaining suitably skilled staff within a competitive market remains challenging. And there are still ongoing skill shortages and supply and cost pressures associated with capital and other projects, which are becoming more challenging, particularly as budgets are overall reducing. Under Objective 2, supporting learning, employment and sustainable economic growth, the viability of new development, which of course is being affected by those inflationary costs I just referred to, is impacting on the amount of Section 106 contributions which are being received, and developers are challenging the viability of schemes and the amount of money they pay through Section 106. And there's been a reduction in match funding opportunities to support some Section 106 schemes because of that. Under Objective 3, supporting people at home and in their community, the success of the placemaking plans remains dependent on the support of communities and, of course, active involvement from town councils. So that's something we would be keen to maintain. And the ability for placemaking plans to continue will be dependent on there being ongoing funding from both UK and Welsh Government. And then finally, Objective 4, respect and enhance and enjoy our environment. The cost of maintaining green infrastructure as it is developed and provided across the council can be challenging going forward. There are major challenges in supporting the shift to the circular economy, which Miles has referred to as we've been in the meeting today, and maintaining the waste and recycling services in a competitive HGV driver market remains very challenging.
Thank you very much, Miles. Again, if we can take the presentation down. Thank you. Councillor Hooper, please.
Thank you, Marcus. Just a point on Objective 4, lack of resources in turning to project manage multiple public open space schemes. So residents in Barrack on the waterfront are obviously in a public open space scheme that's managed by somebody other than the council. And I'm interested in how the council is what the council is doing to support them and getting things done. A colleague on the call tonight, Councillor William, was with the residents recently doing a walk round of all the bits of the space that still haven't been finished. And the list went on to multiple sides of paper. So I'd be interested in what the council's doing to pressurise the developers to get this thing finished properly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hooper, and thank you, Chair. Just to say that probably the description there is slightly different to what you referred to, but I understand exactly what you mean. What that actual descriptor referred to is actually the resources we have within the council to deliver the actually large number of open space improvements that we're trying to deliver across the next 12 months. That is quite difficult. We don't necessarily have the, if you like, manpower resources to actually project manage. So that's where that's pointing to. But in respect of your question specifically around the waterfront, you are quite correct. It is a project that is a open space that is not managed by the council. It is managed privately by a company on behalf of the consortium. We continue to regularly meet with the consortium around the delivery of the waterfront itself and the delivery of some of the open spaces associated with that. I know some of the major issues that the residents have there is around actually the maintenance and the and looking after of the open spaces that have been provided, and how that hasn't happened by the management company. And we have provided them with some advice around how the residents group can take this forward, and I understand they are taking it forward with a formal process of complaint against the company who manages that open space on behalf of the consortium. So I think there are two things really to say: that we continue to put pressure on the consortium, both legally and through meetings and discussions we're having with them very regularly. But also the residents group are themselves pursuing the correct action under the framework which is in place under the law to actually force private management companies to do something.
Thank you very much, Marcus. I don't see any other hands, so I think that brings us to the end of the presentation. Thank you for taking us through the report, Marcus and Miles, and for responding to the questions. I haven't captured any recommendations back for Cabinet. There are some things that we look forward to receiving updates on in Q4, including school transport and green links. Those are both subject to specific reports as part of the committee's forward work plan, but we'll look forward to receiving more information about those in Q4. Councillor Hooper, did you want to come back in at this point?
Yeah, just wondering whether we can pick up the point that Marcus made about coming back to this committee with regard to more information about the differences between the Making Waves scheme and the Transforming Town scheme, or whatever it's called, because I think we need to, it would be good to get into the detail of that rather than just cursory, this is different because of X, Y, and Z. So maybe that could be on there as well. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to suggest that we pick that up again outside this meeting, because we will have an update on those as part of the ADP report in Q4. I guess the issue is whether or not there's sufficient information at that time to warrant, a separate agenda item on those projects, which committee will definitely want to receive when there's significant progress. So if it's all right, Councillor Hooper, I'm going to suggest perhaps we pick that up and clarify that outside the meeting, unless you can do that now, Marcus.
Chair, yes, I think, and Mark can perhaps correct me, but there is on the agenda, on future agendas, both an update report for what was referred to as long-term plan for towns, but will now be referred to plans for neighbourhoods, and on the levelling up scheme, Barry Making Waves. Both of those were intended to be reported in terms of the Barry Making Waves once we had the final agreement to extend the programme, and obviously the agreement of our partner ABP in terms of delivery. So that, I understand, is on time. That should be delivered before summer, I understand. And likewise with the plan for neighbourhoods, I would expect a report to be coming in the next month or so. So those should be on the timetable of reporting back to Scrutiny.
Yeah, thank you. They will be. And just to remind committee members that the forward work plan is very much it's a moving feast. So there are some situations where we need to move reports back, but there are equally circumstances where we might bring a report forward if it's the right time to receive an update. So let's be flexible about it. It is on the forward work programme. We will want to receive it as early as is practical. Councillor William, please, and I'm going to bring this agenda item to a close and move us on. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just letting you know that Councillor Hooper's screen froze as Marcus was giving the response. So I thought you guys ought to know that.
Right. Just to say, Councillor William, we are aware, my colleagues just picked that up as well. He's going to try and make contact with Councillor Hooper. Do you know if he's trying to rejoin, Councillor William?
I think he's permanently been trying to rejoin. Yeah. Steve,
he's just rejoined, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Right, so we will move on to agenda item number 5, which is urgent items.
Sorry, Chair, can I just double check in terms of the ADP and the recommendations? Are we, our committee, simply noting the 2 recommendations we've got in place, or is there anything that needs to be added?
Forgive me, Mark, I actually interrupted myself. Yes, there are no recommendations going back to Cabinet, so I move that we note the report and the actions that are being taken. Can I have a seconder for that recommendation, please? Councillor Drake?
I'll second that.
Thank you very much, Councillor. And now, again, I move us on to agenda item 5, part 1, urgent items, leisure opportunities at countryside service sites. This is a reference from Cabinet and comes as an urgent item because if it's agreed, then contracts will need to be signed by the 1st of April, which is why it's before us this evening as an urgent item. Committee members will have received the formal reference from Cabinet earlier on today, but just to point out that the actual report has come to us some time ago. So hopefully all committee members have had an opportunity to read it. And again, I believe, Marcus, you're taking us through it. So thank you, Marcus, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. I was a bit quick on the button there. Yes, thank you. So I very quickly run through this report. Members will be aware that obviously the country parks, both Cosmoston and Porthcurry, are recognised as being exceptionally important to the residents of the Vale of Glamorgan, but obviously wider than that because we do receive a number of visitors from outside the borough to both parks. Ensuring their long-term future and also ensuring they stay relevant and exciting and interesting to residents and visitors alike is really important to us, alongside the important nature and ecology which can be found within those parks and protecting that for future generations. So the changing way in which these spaces are used is also recognised, and we need to focus on offering leisure activities as well as just the usual if you like, quiet spaces and rural spaces for people to travel, look to come and enjoy. And so we've been very focused on that in the last few years, particularly since the COVID pandemic. We've also been undertaking very recently some placemaking work in all of the 4 main towns, and that's included Barry and Penarth. And summertime leisure activities have been identified by a number of consultees as really important, with a particular focus on Cosmoston itself and the lack of leisure-based activities there. So with that in mind, the council has been approached by a leisure operator. Sorry, my phone was going off there. The council has been approached by a leisure operator who would like to explore opportunities for using part of the eastern lake of Cosmoston for water-based leisure activities from May 25 through to September, and to test the suitability of the location for a possible longer-term venture. This report seeks approval to negotiate and complete a licence agreement for a maximum term of the summer period for the water-based activity, and for it to be operated in the eastern part of the eastern lake in Cosmoston. There is likely to be income to the council from the operator undertaking this, which of course will be used to further improve facilities in the country park. Finally, we're also looking at further opportunities around the use of the medieval village and how we can use that to financially support its long-term future. And we intend to report back on that later in the year once we've received the information. So just to add that the Eastern Lake in Cosmoston has been used for many years for leisure-based activities, including boating, canoeing, and paddle boarding. And obviously there are established a cafe and other refreshment operators in that country park. And our intention, obviously, with the possibility of bringing another on-water leisure operator to the lake is that we supplement those existing activities and existing offers in the park and improve the leisure offer, while at the same time allowing us to maintain the existing quality facilities we have there. So this report overall just seeks approval to enter into negotiations to run a pilot and test this as an operation on the lake for the summer of 2025. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Marcus. Councillor Norman, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Marcus, for your report. I wonder, could you clarify, please, with all this extra activities that's going on, what provision has been given to protect the wildlife? Because we're all aware of the tremendous amount of birds that nest around the area, the geese, the swans, and what have you. Are these being protected during this operation?
Thank you, Councillor. Marcus, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to Councillor Norman. Yes, so the members will know that the actual lake is designated as a site of special scientific interest, and in particular around the use for overwintering birds. So the summer use for the leisure activities, which, as I say, has happened for many years, should, and colleagues in ecology have verified, this should have no impact on existing wildlife. One thing that should be noted is that we are and we will have to gain the approval of Natural Resources Wales before any of those activities can take place. And in the past, that approval has been granted, subject to certain conditions, such as the washing of equipment to ensure that there is no biohazard transference to water, and those types of issues, and in particular when boats are used on the water, that the boats themselves are cleaned and ensure there's no barnacles or transfer of alien species into the water. But colleagues in our countryside service are absolutely categorical in their view that this should have no impact on existing wildlife, and there are a number of conditions that would be applied to any operator to ensure that was the case.
Thank you, Marcus.
Thank you, Marcus. Marcus, before I bring in Councillor Innes, are you able to clarify what the planned aqua activity is? Because I don't think the report makes that clear.
No, absolutely, I can, Chair. It is essentially an on-water, almost a salt course, including slides and climbing frames. Inflatable equipment will be placed on the lake in a particular location, obviously, which will be marked off in the lake itself, and will be available for people who wish to take part in activity to climb and to slide and to bounce on the equipment.
Thank you very much, Marcus. Councillor Ernest, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Marcus. Well, you've managed to answer the very question I was going to ask you, exactly what the activities are going to be. And actually, the more I hear of it, the more concerned I am about the impact that it's going to have on the park as a whole. But you know, this is the way the council is going. We need money, and more money. And if we have destroyed the peace and tranquility of our country parks, well, so be it. But we also will impact on those who go to walk around the park, enjoy the paths. The other wildlife, it's not only swans and ducks. You've got small mammals who live in the reeds. You've got bird life that passes through, and as this is in my ward, clearly you can understand that I, and indeed my colleague, have got great concerns about this. I'm wondering, Marcus, whether you can tell me what sort of fees might be charged, bearing in mind we're already charging parking fees for people to stop for even an hour or so to have a coffee and a walk. What sort of fees, and what sort of measures you'll be taking to in respect of the conflict with other users of the park and the wildlife. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Marcus, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the fees themselves, if I cover those areas first, the fees will be the subject of the operator of the leisure activity. That won't be in the council's gift. That will be for them to charge those fees. The council would hope to, and we are currently negotiating some kind of income from the siting of it there, but I can't tell you what that is at this stage as those negotiations continue. In respect of obviously wildlife and other animals at the water. The intention is that the area of which this will be used on will be marked out and will be kept away from the most ecologically important areas, and that will be really important. There will be a number of conditions attached to any license to ensure that happens.
Thank you, Marcus.
Thank you very much, Marcus. At least that answers some of the immediate questions. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Penn, please.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Brilliant. Thanks, Marcus. Just a couple of questions. I know we're early in the process and maybe some of these answers can't be given as yet. Just on water quality monitoring, has any been done? Will there be any going forward as the trial period continues? I would like to see strict enforcement on no access to the Western Lake, and I know that this is a bouncy assault course, not watercraft. The company's looking to employ 20 young people. It would be very encouraging if they were urged to look locally from, Penarth and Barry. I'm sure there are lots of young people who would enjoy a summer job at the lake and get to use the facilities as well and get paid. And the other thing is the report states 3.6, the lack of leisure opportunities for younger residents. If the costing is kept low and there's a concession for younger people, then that would actually address that issue of there being leisure opportunities for younger people if the cost is kept lower. So it would be good to urge the company to have a concession for younger users. But on the whole, I can see the trial period being a good exercise to see how we can use Cosmeston in this way. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Marcus, are you able to come back in? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Penn. In respect of water quality, the water is tested twice a year at Cosmeston to ensure that quality is maintained. You will be aware we've had other leisure activities on the water in the past. We've had canoe training and we've had boating, which obviously ended before COVID, but we've also had paddle boarding. And so we are fairly confident that there is no issue with the water quality. And as I say, that is regularly tested to ensure there's no issues there. It's a really good point you make about the Western Lake, and absolutely that lake is much more, if you like, ecologically important than the Eastern Lake, and that's certainly something that we've always maintained when leisure activities have taken place on the lake in the past, that there are none on that Western Lake. It is very much confined to the Eastern Lake, and that would remain the case. And in fact, with this particular activity, it is confined to the very easternmost part of the Eastern Lake, so it's as far as it can be from the western part. You raise a really good point about local people. The operator actually has previously operated in Cardiff Bay and has employed people from Penarth and Barry in the past. And they have been, unfortunately, been forced to close their operations in Cardiff Bay, which is why they're looking for new alternative premises. And they already have a number of people they're looking to employ who are very local to Penarth, and have been previously employed apparently in their previous activities. So they're very much focusing on local people and giving those local people training as well to reach good standards of employment further down the road. So I think that is a really good point to make. And finally, in terms of younger residents and costs, I know one of the things that the company is very keen on and have been in the past is both offering concessions, but also offering schools reduced rates to come and use the facilities, and also clubs. So certainly that's something that I expect them to continue to do when they operate over, when and if they open in Cosmeston Park.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Marcus. Councillor Norman, did you want to come back in?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Marcus. Just 2 points, really. First of all, are these facilities going to be permanently supervised? People are not allowed to go on their own, what have you. And secondly, the young people that are actually running the place or supervising, helping out, are they RNLI qualified lifeguards?
Thank you, Councillor Marcus again.
Thank you, Chair. In terms of supervision, yes, I think the equipment is very, very expensive, so I don't think they want to leave it available for people to use. I understand actually there will be side benefits for us because when the operation shuts for the night, they are employing both CCTV and some security to ensure that no one will be using them when they shouldn't be using them. And that will obviously give us a little bit of added protection that we don't currently have in the summer. And those of you who live close and are up and off, councillors will know we do have a huge issue with people swimming, unauthorised fishing, unauthorised use of the lake outside of, if you like, office hours. So there will be some added benefit in that we will have some protection provided by that security. And then in terms of the employees themselves, they will receive very thorough training, I understand. They do have to meet certain life-saving standards. I have to say I don't know the exact standards, but we have seen the guidance that's provided by the company, and they are, to get their insurance, they have to get to a very high level of safety training, including getting people back who may have had issues with drowning or even heart attacks. So they are very, very trained. The staff receive a good amount of training.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Joanna Prosro, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Marcus. I mean, for young people, it sounds like a lovely thing to be able to do. The game Wipeout being still very, very popular with older children and teenagers. So I'm sure it'll be incredibly well received with young people. And of course, they will travel. You mentioned a similar project in Cardiff, and I can see exactly what it looks like. About £20 a ticket, I think they've been charging there for the experience. Now, I understand it's seasonal, and we're talking about a 20-week pilot to see how it goes. I'm just wondering what investment they're putting into this, if initially it's going to be for 20 weeks rather, and then we will then have to, I'm assuming, have some kind of open tender for other interested operators to bid for a longer period. Is that how we see this working? And naturally, we need to be really concerned about safety, obviously, because if anything happens, God forbid, that would be terrible. So clearly, we're working with operators who do this and have done it for a long time, have an exemplar track record of safety. So I'm sure that we will make sure that the due diligence is done. But yeah, so my question really is about this is a pilot. Then what happens next, and how are we going to give this opportunity to others also if we think it's a really good idea? But I love it. I can see young people would really, really like this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Prosser. Thank you, Chair. Yes, so the reason we've taken the decision to just run a pilot is we want to see what the impact could possibly be. Is there, will there be downsides? There could well be. We just don't know, and we need to assess that. And the only way we really can assess that is to run it for a summer season. The intention is that we will, at the end of that season in September, carry out a full evaluation and decide if we are going to go out to offer a tender to much wider for the next season, and possibly for a much longer term venture, so probably a minimum of 10 years, because that way if the company who actually wins the tender wants to invest, then it gives them some security if they wish to invest. Currently, in terms of this, obviously the company involved has its own equipment. It has previously been sited in Cardiff Bay, as I said, so they have their own equipment. They do have temporary equipment which they will be bringing with them for things like changing. A lot of that will be in the form of marquees and portable cabins. We are, as part of any license, going to grant them some space in the overflow car park to allow that space that won't be next to the lake, so that they don't, if you like, create a bad impression in terms of visually in terms of the lake. It is largely temporary, what will come this year. Were there to be decision taken to actually go out to tender for a longer term venture, then obviously then we'd be looking for more permanent, perhaps fixtures and fittings. But at this particular case, it is likely that these will be very much temporary. And then finally, I think you did ask a question about the due diligence and the company itself. The company runs currently 3 water parks, two of which are actually in lakes and have been very successful. The third was in Cardiff Bay, but the company has had issues with water quality and not being able to actually operate on quite a number of days. So essentially has been looking for somewhere new to operate, and came to us with quite short notice, because I understand they were unable to continue in Cardiff Bay. That has given us an opportunity to test it, but as you say, this may not be the company that would win a long-term tender if we ever get to that stage. So this has just allowed us to assess how well this type of activity would work in Cosmiston Lake.
Thank you, Marcus. Councillor Hooper, please.
Thank you, Marcus. And the due diligence is one of the points I was going to make, so I'm glad that that's been picked up, particularly with what happened in Cardiff. Be interested if there's any more information that we need to know there. I just want to pick up on Councillor Ernest's point. I think the appropriateness of this development shouldn't be swept under the carpet. I think there are some questions, and they're right to be heard around whether this is an appropriate sort of solution for Cosmiston. But the last point, and this is, I suppose, a point of process. It references in the report that this is a funding opportunity that helps us to be able to fund this park. I wonder, is it a significant funding opportunity, and therefore was it in the budget that we signed off yesterday? And I'm just wondering why this has come to this committee tonight and perhaps hadn't come beforehand. Thank you.
Marcus, I think you've explained it was a very recent approach, but please do respond to Councillor Hooper.
Thank you, Chair. Well, with regard firstly to the appropriateness, obviously, Councillor Hooper, that's something that the pilot will allow us to test and to see how well it works within the park environment. As I said before, the company itself operates in 2 other locations in the UK in parks which are very, very similar to Cosmiston and has been very successful. So we will see how that goes through the summer if we're able to sign the license agreement with them. In terms of the funding opportunity, it has come to us in very short notice, which is why it has moved quite quickly. The operator themselves essentially has had a number of issues in Cardiff Bay around water quality, as I've indicated, and this has actually led to them deciding to move out to Cardiff Bay because they just weren't able to operate for the days they needed to. Essentially, every time there was heavy rain, the water quality was so bad they were unable to operate. So they basically just couldn't carry on functioning in a financially viable way in Cardiff Bay, so they were looking for an alternative venue. They approached us after Christmas, and hence why we had to move so quickly. And in terms of the funding opportunity, obviously at this particular stage, the opportunity, I mean, I wouldn't say it's for, there's could be quite a lot of work for the amount of money it'll probably offer for this year. But in terms of the longer term options, and were we able to offer a more long term license agreement or lease, if it's deemed to be a successful activity, then that there will be, substantial income opportunities from the council based around this. I can't go into the figures themselves; that will be subject to negotiation, but they'd certainly be substantial, and they would allow us, and it would act towards funding for the park itself and support the work of the park, work in the park around ecology and other developments. And I think the final thing to say is it's really important to note that this activity will largely only take place between the months of May and September, with probably late May being the start and probably early September being the finish. So it is a really quite constrained period, and any income opportunity which allows us to do work right through the year has to be welcome.
Thank you, Marcus. Can I check if any of the committee members want to ask any questions or comment? Because otherwise I'm going to bring in the relevant cabinet member. No, I can't see any hands. So thank you, Councillor Brooks, for joining us. Would you like to come in? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. And it's been really interesting to hear the conversation and discussion in committee, and it's really valuable. I think just to try and offer some reassurance around this pilot, and it is very, very much a pilot. As has already been highlighted, I don't want to just go over the old ground, but the Eastern Lake was put forward because of the area that was used before for various leisure activities, and obviously the diversity and obviously the environment there, the conservation at Cosmeston is extremely important, which is why whatever discussions we've taken place with the with the parks team, the rangers, and then also with the proposed operator, have been quite detailed and to get everybody's views and to make sure that we are going to do this right, because it is extremely important to protect that side of the park as well. But also, I think we do need to bear in mind that with the placemaking and other suggestions that we've had over the last few years, it is about trying to find some extra leisure opportunities for our young people. I think young people particularly have been impacted by the pandemic and are still being impacted to real detriment. I think we all see that. So I think to be able to offer some leisure opportunities and to get those important, what I call the blues and greens, a bit of green grass, blue sky, right, potentially some grey skies. We are in Wales after all. But I think that is so important to get our young people out into the open air and have some fun in a safe, controlled environment. The operator's got a proven track record, and I think that's really important because obviously safety is paramount, as well as then obviously other users of the park, which is why there's a lot of thought and detail has gone into actually just siting a bit, but also things like the changing facilities, what substances or detergents or whatever it is will be used. It's really, really important. So I think this is very much a pilot. I'm really interested to see how it works out, which is why at the end of that 20 weeks, then I've actually asked for a report to come back to Cabinet, which again will be shared with scrutiny as well for that further discussion and to see where it goes from there. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But I think it's so important to try this. And myself, for one, I look forward to seeing this alongside all the parks and the concessions that we already use, as well as all the other side there where people could walk in a quieter environment and obviously to protect that wildlife. So thanks for everybody for their views tonight. And it forms very much part of what we're trying to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I don't see any other hands. We're so fortunate, aren't we, that we have such a beautiful park in our environment, and I for one will enjoy walking past the activity. But just to be clear, I won't be jumping and climbing on it. But I'm sure I know plenty of young people who will be very excited to participate in it. So thank you, committee. Just to remind you that the report was before us tonight for our consideration prior to final agreement. I think Marcus has addressed all the issues that committee has raised, but just to summarise so that we can ensure that they are considered before final agreement is reached with the providers. Committee has emphasised the need for strict enforcement to ensure no access to the Western Lake, and that every step is taken to protect the ecological diversity of Cosmoston and, of course, the wildlife who habitat there. We would very much welcome the provider supporting local recruitment in terms of the jobs that are going to be created through the pilot period. We hope that affordability will be a key part of the discussion with the provider, and that consideration will be given to offering concessions. We think it's important to ensure that there's a balance with the other activities that take part in Cosmoston, so that this activity doesn't interfere with other people's enjoyment of the park as far as possible. And safety is a priority, so it's important to ensure that there is due diligence, adequate supervision, training, security, etc. And I think that summarises the main points that were raised, but just to give an opportunity, if I've missed anything, please raise your hand and let me know. No, good. I hope that means I've captured the discussion. So other than that, can I move that we note the report, please? And can I have a seconder? Councillor Prothero? Happy to second. Have we lost Councillor Prothero?
I don't think so. I'm happy to second that, Chair.
Thank you very much.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Thank you.
Just to confirm, Chair, obviously noting the report, but those comments or issues that have been raised, they go back to Cabinet for referral or just for?
Well, I'm guessing, given the timescales in terms of the contracts needing to be signed by the 1st of April, is there time for those to go back to Cabinet for consideration, or would it sit with you, Marcus, as the Director? If you can offer advice on that, that would be helpful.
I think, Mark, is there time to report it back to Cabinet next week?
I will confer with the Cabinet Officer, but yeah, if we can get the minute in time, we can certainly do that. That's fine. If you feel it should be going.
If that can be done, then that's fine.
Yeah, okay, that shouldn't be a problem. We'll get something back to Cabinet, Chair.
Thank you.
And then they can consider it, and then you can proceed then.
Thank you very much, Mark. Thank you. We're coming to the end of the meeting, but I can see Councillor Ernest, you have your hand up. Did you want to add something?
Yes, Chair, and I just wanted to endorse what we've just been talking about, that I think those comments should be forwarded to Cabinet, and well, I'm grateful to have the assurance that that can happen. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. And if for any reason the timescales don't allow that, then we'll ensure that committee is informed, but otherwise that will be where those comments will go. Thank you very much. So that brings us to the end of the business for this evening. So it just remains for me to thank everybody for their contributions this evening and remind you that our next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, the 8th of April at 6 o'clock. Thank you all, and I will see you then, if not before.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
We'll start.